Yeah, good evening, everybody. I thought I'd better explain why we had no class last week. Um, I had a hard fall on a concrete sidewalk after slipping on a piece of ice 2 days before the class. I was then diagnosed with a mild concussion. I didn't mention to the nurse that saw me that I also had fallen very heavily on my side. I think I have either cracked ribs or bruised ribs, which apparently take much longer to heal than the head. Anyway, so I didn't lose consciousness, but it meant that I had a headache for about 3 or 4 days. And I also was told not to try and concentrate for more than 10 minutes at a time. So having a 90-minute class was completely out of the question last week. Anyway, fortunately, I'm back to almost normal, except for my ribs, which don't affect my ability to do this particular task. So here we are, starting up again. I have adjusted the remaining dates a little bit for the rest of the course. I will be sending out the revised schedule tomorrow morning so that you can see what exactly is ahead. Okay. So with all that information shared, why don't we start with the sixth class, which I called Christification. And of course, that's making you all wonder what in the world I'm talking about. So let me just start sharing my documents again. So last time, you'll remember this. Sorry, I just have to get rid of this floating panel. Yeah, so this was a painting that Jung drew or made with his lying on the ground here, confronting Elijah and Salome. And you can just barely tell that there's a black snake at the front here. Anyway, that's where we ended off last time. Tonight, we're going to take a deep dive into the second and third sections of what Jung identifies as the Mysterium, or the mystery play. He refers to it as his transformation. The vision of Elijah and Salome we examined last time was the first of 3 nights' experiences, which is named Encounter. That's chapter 9 for those of you who have the Reader's Edition. The second is called Instruction, that's chapter 10, while the third is Resolution, chapter 11. Collectively, the 3 comprise one of the longest linked visualizations documented in the Red Book. As we saw with the encounter 2 weeks ago, each portion of the Mysterium is enigmatic, meaningful, and difficult to summarize. In Appendix B of the Red Book, which was written about a decade later, in the early 1920s, Jung reflected on the figures he had encountered in the Mysterium encounters. He asserted that Elijah and Salome were more allegorical than actual experiences. He claims that he did not consciously contrive them in order to depict his inner experiences in either veiled or fantastic terms. Rather, he said they appeared as visions. But it wasn't until he reworked these visions that he realized that they could in no way be compared with the experiences portrayed in the other chapters. As such, the mystery play images were more accessible to thinking and intellectual understanding than the rest of his experiences in the Red Book. Fortunately. So let's look at chapter 10, which is called Instruction. So the second vision occurred on December the 22nd, 1913. It consists of a lengthy conversation between Jung and Elijah, centering on Jung's reasons for meeting the prophet and Salome in the imaginal realm. And as always, we're going to need lots of readers tonight. So any volunteers who would like to put their hands up, that would be wonderful. And I see Lisa beat Milton to the punch there. So Lisa gets the honor of reading the first item.
Okay. On the following night, December 22nd, 1913, I was led to a second image. I am standing in the rocky depth that seems to me like a crater. Before me, I see the house with columns. I see Salome walking along the length of the wall toward the left, touching the wall like a blind person. The serpent follows her. The old man stands at the door and waves to me. Hesitantly, I draw closer. He calls Salome back. She is like someone suffering. I cannot detect any sacrilege in her nature. Her hands are white, and her face has a gentle expression. The serpent lies before them. I stand before them clumsily, like a stupid boy, overwhelmed by uncertainty and ambiguity. The old man eyes me searchingly and says, "What do you want here?" I, "Forgive me. It is not obtrusiveness or arrogance that leads me here. I am here perchance, i.e., by chance, not knowing what I want. A longing that stayed behind in your house yesterday has brought me here. You see, prophet, I am tired. My head is heavy as lead. I am lost in my ignorance. I have toyed with myself enough. I played hypocritical games with myself, and they all would have disgusted me, were it not clever to perform what others expect from us in the world of men. It seems to me as if I were more real here, and yet I do not like being here.
Hmm. Okay, so this indicates that Jung is clearly feeling out of his depth in this new world. So Milton is going to take us a little bit further here. Number two.
Wordlessly, Elijah and Salome step inside the house. I follow them reluctantly. A feeling of guilt torments me. Is it bad conscience? I would like to turn back, but I cannot. I stand before the play of fire and the shining crystal. I see in splendor the Mother of God with the child. Peter stands in front of her in admiration. Then Peter alone with the key, the Pope with a triple crown, a Buddha sitting rigidly in a circle of fire, a many-armed, bloody goddess Kali. It is Salome desperately wringing her hands. It, Kali, takes hold of me. She is my own soul. And now I see Elijah in the image of the stone. Elijah and Salome stand smiling before me.
Mhm. Thank you. So this shining crystal serves as a looking glass or mirror in which a series of religious images swiftly passes before Jung's eyes. They are from three religious traditions, Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism. In Black Book 2, Jung says that the image of Elijah reminded him of Michelangelo's Moses in the Church of San Pietro in Vincoli in Rome. And here is a photograph of that.
Oh,
Really
wow.
daunting character to be seeing. Okay, so now we go back to the readings, and David Oak is going to read a third one for us. Thank you.
I'll just unmute myself. It says, these visions are full of torment and the meaning of these images is dark to me. Elijah, please shed some light. Elijah turns away silently and leads the way toward the left. Salome enters a colonnade to the right. Elijah leads me into an even darker room. A burning red lamp hangs from the ceiling. I sit down exhausted. Elijah stands before me, leaning on a marble lion in the middle of the room. Elijah, are you anxious? Your ignorance is to blame for your bad conscience. Not knowing is guilt, but you believe that it is the urge toward forbidden knowledge that causes your feeling of guilt. Why do you think you are here?
And keep going. Oh, I beg your pardon. Let me just.
Oh, yes. Oh, I thought that was
It's
the end
my
of it.
fault.
Yeah.
My fault. Sorry.
No problem. I don't know. I sank into this place when unknowingly I tried resisting the not known. So here I am, astonished and confused, an ignorant fool. I experience strange things in your house, things that frighten me, and whose meaning is dark to me. If it were not your law to be here, how would you be here?
Okay, thank you. So the word colonnade, for those of you who don't go to that restaurant, it's a series of columns set at regular intervals and usually supporting the base of a roof structure. So that's where Salome has gone. So what does Elijah mean when he pinpoints Jung's law as bringing him to this extraordinary place? Is it his destiny, his fate, or his vocation? By the conclusion of the Red Book, Jung will understand that it is his self with a capital S, which is drawing him on. He does not yet know it, but he is on the path to individuation. Now, I had handed out this interesting piece on individuation. So Jung's understanding in the Red Book evolved in the following years. He came to see individuation as the journey towards self-realization, the deepening of awareness in which a person moves beyond their many external social roles to discover and fulfill their innermost potential. He described it as coming to selfhood, a process whereby one's individuality gradually embraces their incomparable uniqueness. So the characteristics are interesting. It's a lifelong journey of separating from collective norms and discovering one's unique self. It requires integrating unconscious elements, such as the archetypes of the shadow, the anima or animus, and the self, into one's conscious identity for psychological wholeness. We're going to see a lot about the anima in the coming talks. The process strengthens authenticity and enhances both individual and collective relationships. It does not mean isolation from others. Instead, as one individuates, the capacity for authentic connection and meaningful participation in society deepens, since the process helps clarify what is truly unique about each person, while also linking them to universal human experiences. Jung argued that individuation is vital for mental health, offering a way to balance personal uniqueness with the collective needs of society. This concept is central to Jung's psychology and underlies ideas like the active imagination, shadow work, and the integration of archetypes. So let's go back to the continuation of Jung and Elijah's dialogue. I'm hearing some feedback, Linda. Is everybody muted or?
Yes, they are. Except I'll mute myself. Maybe that'll help because we're in the same
I feel like I'm hearing a little radio chat
hearing,
or something.
Yeah, I'm hearing clicks. Okay.
Okay, anyway, so Jack is going to read number 4 from us, which is a direct continuation from number 3.
Unmute. I'm afflicted by fatal weakness, my father, Elijah. You are evasive. You cannot extricate yourself from your law. I. How can I extricate myself from what is unknown to me, which I cannot reach with either feeling or presentiment? Elijah, you are lying. Do you not know that you yourself recognized what it means if Salome loves you? I. You are right. A doubtful and uncertain thought arose in me, but I have forgotten it again, Elijah. You have not forgotten it. It burned deep inside you. Are you cowardly? Or can you not differentiate this thought from your own self enough that you wish to claim it for yourself? I. The thought went too far for me, and I shun far-fetched ideas. They are dangerous since I am a man, and you know how much men are accustomed to seeing thoughts as their very own, so that they eventually confuse them with themselves. Carl Gustav Jung, A Reader's Edition, page 185 to 6.
Okay, thank you. Elijah apparently knows what is going through Jung's mind better than he does himself. He forces him to acknowledge that he is evading the implications of Salome's love for him. And he then calls out his unconscious tendency to believe his thoughts belong to him, are actually him. Okay, so it's starting to get a little intense here. And Nina has agreed to do number 5 for us. Thank you very much.
Will you therefore confuse yourself with a tree or animal because you look at them and because you exist with them in one and the same world? Must you be your thoughts because you are in the world of your thoughts, but your thoughts are just as much outside yourself as trees and animals are outside your body? I understand my thought. World was for me more word than world. I thought of my thought. World, it is I. Do you say to your human world and every being outside of you, you are I? I stepped into your house, my father, with the fear of a schoolboy, but you taught me salutary wisdom. That helps me to return to that terrible conclusion that my tongue is reluctant to express. I thought that Salome loves me because I resemble John or you. This thought seemed unbelievable to me. That's why I rejected it and thought that she loves me because I am really quite opposite to you, that she loves her badness in my badness. This thought was devastating.
Wow, thank you. So the word salutary wisdom right here. It's an adjective which means producing a beneficial effect. So as Jung explained in 1925 in his seminars, this was the moment when he learned psychological objectivity. From this point forward, he understood that we must see our thoughts as external events, as phenomena, in order to comprehend the unconscious. Now that's actually a pretty challenging idea, something that you have to repeat over and over again before you really get it. Okay, Hangame, you have agreed to do number 6, right?
Yes, please. Elijah is silent. Heaviness lies on me. Then Salome steps in, comes over to me, and lays her arm around my shoulder. She takes me for her father, in whose chair I sat. I dare neither move nor speak. S. I know that you are not my father. You are his son, and I am your sister. I. You, Salome, my sister? Was this the terrible attraction that emanated from you, that unnameable horror of you. So
Yep.
yeah, horror of you, of your touch. Who was our mother? S. Mary. I. Is it a hellish dream? Mary, our mother? What madness lurks in your words? The mother of our Savior, our mother? When I crossed your threshold today, I foresaw calamity. Alas, it has come. Are you out of your senses, Salome? Elijah, protector of the divine law, speak. Is this a devilish spell cast by the rejected? How can she say such a thing? Or are both of you out of your senses? You are symbols and Mary is a symbol. I am simply too confused to see through you now.
He's having a hard time. Jung is scandalized by the idea that he himself is the son of Mary, in other words, Jesus Christ. To hear this from a figure that Elijah has just told him is objectively real only increases his consternation. How can he and Salome possibly be the children of Mary? Obviously, Salome's words aren't literally true. What we have to realize is that here the imaginal realm is portraying a psychological reality in seemingly concrete images. As Sanford Drob summarizes the moral of this second part of the Mysterium, Jung is being presented with several overwhelming challenges which he must conquer. Okay, so Elizabeth, you're going to do a short one, number 7, and then I'll come back to you later. Whoop, you're muted. Elizabeth, you're muted.
Okay. By loving Salome, Jung in effect accepts his shadow and anima, forges a new self, is identified with Christ, and ushers in a new God.
Wow. Well, we haven't seen the evidence for all of that yet, but we will in the coming classes. So right now he's really struggling with his shadow and his anima. Each of these challenges will take significant time to overcome. Much of the remainder of the Red Book describes in great detail the birth and early development of a new God within Jung's psyche. What we must remember is that Jung is emphatically not referring to the creation of a new metaphysical or ontological God. What he is describing is the birth of what he calls a new God image, a new conception of God within his own inner world. Although this arose from his unconscious, it was in fact a direct response to the death of God pronouncement made by Friedrich Nietzsche late in the 19th century. So Nietzsche first articulated the phrase God is dead 3 times in his 1882 work, The Gay Science. It appears twice again in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, published in 1885. This statement isn't a literal claim about the existence or non-existence of a deity, but rather a metaphorical statement about the decline of religious belief and the moral systems built upon it. Nietzsche was of the opinion that the Enlightenment and the rise of scientific rationalism had eroded the foundational role of Christianity in shaping the moral and existential values in Western society. Carl Jung interpreted Nietzsche's announcement of the death of God as a profound psychological event, rather than a religious or philosophical declaration. Jung saw the statement as expressing a reality for much of Europe, that the guiding force of the Christian God had lost its centrality and meaning in many people's lives. Throughout his life, Jung never rejected Nietzsche's insight, but sought to deepen it psychologically, warning against both despair and hubris. He argued that Nietzsche was describing a widespread psychological condition in Western society, one of loss and emptiness, resulting from the diminishing role of traditional religion. For Jung, this wasn't simply an assertion of atheism or the denial of God. No. This loss and emptiness in reality created a vacuum that exposed individuals to nihilism, existential uncertainty, and a sense of disorientation. Jung believed that without a transcendent value, people would mistakenly elevate their own egos and values in the place of the divine. He warned that this could lead to the inflation of the ego, a dangerous overemphasis on individual will and self-importance, which Jung believed Nietzsche himself exemplified. Rather than resolving the death of God by replacing old beliefs with new certainty, Jung stressed the need for individuals to confront this loss, to mourn it, and to seek meaning inwardly. He warned that simply inverting previous values by rejecting Christianity and divinizing the self wouldn't restore meaning, but would lead to further fragmentation and psychological distress. Jung used the figure of Zarathustra from Nietzsche's writings to illustrate the dangers of ego inflation and the loss of regulating influences from the unconscious. I'm hoping that you're hearing this as describing our current situation in the world, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this course, because I think it's important that we realize what we're facing as the world around us dies. Let me just take a drink. So Jung promoted a process of psychological integration in which individuals seek new symbols and meanings within themselves, acknowledging the polarity and complexity of the psyche. Rather than escaping into nihilism or delusions of grandeur, Jung encouraged an honest engagement with the unconscious, using myth and symbol to build productive meaning in the absence of external religious authority. So what exactly is a God image? Imago Dei is the term in Latin. Jung distinguishes God images from the metaphysical God by emphasizing that the God image is a psychological concept, an archetype imprinted in the human psyche. The metaphysical God, on the other hand, lies well beyond direct human knowledge and experience. The God image is how humans psychologically experience and conceptualize the divine within the limitations of their own minds. Jung insists on numerous occasions in his writings that his work in psychology only deals with this image, not with making metaphysical claims about God himself. So for Baha'is, that's easy to understand because they see that God is utterly transcendent. And what we think about him is what Jung is talking about. He conceptualizes the God image as an archetype, a universal symbolic pattern found in the psyche, which has been shaped over the centuries by religious traditions and experiences. It refers to the inner subjective experience of divinity, which is symbolized in myths, dreams, and religious imagery. It represents the archetype of wholeness and the self, manifesting as the human capacity to encounter and relate to the sacred within. This image serves as a psychic representation of the divine and is often experienced as numinous, autonomous, and emotionally charged. According to Jung, the God image emerges from the collective unconscious as part of the individuation process. It is not a literal deity, but a psychic reality pointing towards psychological integration. Jung maintains that anything said about the metaphysical God, God in the absolute or ultimate sense, is beyond the scope of psychology and human comprehension. In classical theology, the metaphysical God is understood as the ultimate transcendent source of being, wholly other and independent from creation or the human mind. This God is typically described in philosophical and theological terms as infinite, omnipotent, and beyond all psychological categories. In this context, God's reality does not depend on human experience. It is an objective external reality. Consequently, Jung warns people against trying to merge God images with metaphysical assertions about what God is in himself. In his view, claiming direct knowledge of the metaphysical God steps outside science and psychology into the realms of theology and philosophy, worlds he purposely avoids in his analytical psychology. Well, here's a nice handy summary of the differences between the God image in the middle column and the metaphysical God on the right. So I had given this to you previously, so I don't know that we need to go over it right now. It's just a summary of what I've just said. So there's a very clear dividing line between the metaphysical God and the image that we carry around inside ourselves. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the readings. And hopefully Elizabeth is still willing to continue to read a little bit. So number 8,
Okay,
please.
no problem.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, you may call us symbols for the same reason that you also call your fellow men symbols if you wish to. But we are just as real as your fellow men. You invalidate nothing and solve nothing by calling us symbols. You plunge me into a terrible confusion. Do you wish to be real? Well, certainly what you call real. Here we are, and you have to accept us. The choice is yours. I am silent. Salome has removed herself. Uncertainly, I look around. Behind me, high golden red flame burns on a round altar. The serpent has encircled the flame. Its eyes glitter with golden reflections. Swaying, I turn to the exit. As I step out into the hall, I see a powerful lion going before me. Outside, it is a wide, cold, starry night.
Thank you. So at the end of the first night's vision, Jung described Salome and Elijah as symbols of the most extreme contradiction. Elijah promptly replied, "We are real and not symbols." The third Mysterium vision, in chapter 11, Resolution, occurred on December 25th, 1913, Christmas night. This time, Jung undergoes two separate but closely related visions. And Ingrid has agreed to do number 9, I beg your pardon, which is about the dueling serpents.
On the third night, deep longing to continue experiencing the mystery seized me. The struggle between doubt and desire was great in me. But suddenly I stood before a steep ridge in a wasteland. It is a dazzling bright day. I catch sight of the prophet Elijah high above me. His hand makes an averting movement, and I abandon my decision to climb up. I wait below, gazing upward. I look. To the right, it is dark night. To the left, it is bright day. The rock separates day and night. On the dark side lies a big black serpent. On the bright side, a white serpent. They thrust their heads towards, can you?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yep, sorry.
They thrust their heads toward each other, eager for battle. Elijah stands on the heights above them. The serpents pounce on one another, and a terrible wrestling ensues. The black serpent seems to be stronger. The white serpent draws back. Great billows of dust rise from the place of struggle. But then I see the black serpent pulls itself back again. The front part of its body has become white. Both serpents curl about themselves, one in light, the other in darkness.
Okay, sorry about that. So 12 years later, Jung explained that he had to continue descending into the underworld using the same technique he had devised. However, he was not able to make the descent and remained on the surface. Okay, Jennifer, I see you're ready to go. Number 10, and I'm going to ask you to do 11 in a second, too.
Then I realized that I had a conflict in myself about going down, but I could not make out what it was. I only felt that two dark principles were fighting each other, two serpents.
So he then recounted the vision of the fight between the two serpents. Here is how he interpreted this particular vision 12 years later. Okay, that's number 11.
The interpretation of these dreams is this. First, the fight of the two snakes. The white means a movement into the day, the black into the kingdom of darkness, with moral aspects too. There was a real conflict in me, a resistance to going down. My stronger tendency was to go up. Because I had been so impressed the day before with the cruelty of the place I had seen, I really had a tendency to find a way to the conscious by going up, as I did on the mountain. The mountain was the place of the sun.
Okay, thank you. Returning to the Red Book, Jung discusses the vision with Elijah. He confesses that he doesn't understand it. He asks if it means that the power of the good light will become so great that even the darkness will resist. The darkness that resists it will be illumined by it. Elijah does not answer him directly. Instead, he shrinks to the size of a dwarf and dives down into a crevice in the rock and ends up in a dark cave. Jung hears him say, "Here are my wells. Whoever drinks from them becomes wise." They then return by a circuitous route to Elijah's house and continue their dialogue. Okay, is Sherry or Bill ready to do number 12?
Hi. I
Ah,
notice, Elijah, that you have shown me and let me experience all sort of strange things and allowed me to come before you tonight. But I confess that it is all dark to me. Your world appears to me today in a new light. Just now, it was as if I were separated by a starry distance from your place, which I still wanted to reach today. But behold, it seems to be one and the same place. You wanted to come here far too much. I did not deceive you. You deceived yourself. He sees badly who wants to see. You have overreached yourself. It is true, I eagerly long to reach you, to hear more. Salome startled me and led me into the wilderness. I felt dizzy because what she said seemed to me to be monstrous and like madness. Where is Salome? How impetuous, Elijah, how impetuous you are. What is up with you? Step over to the crystal and prepare yourself in its light.
okay. Thank you. When he does as Elijah commands, Jung notices that the stone is surrounded by a wreath of fire. He is seized by fear at what he sees next. In his second vision, Jung is Christed. By that he means that he takes Christ's place on the cross during his final hour on Golgotha. Here is his description of the vision. Okay, Milton, let's see what you do. This is number 13.
I see the cross of Jesus, the removal of the cross, the mourning, how agonizing this sight is. No longer do I yearn. I see the divine child with the white serpent in his right hand and the black serpent in his left hand. I see the green mountain, the cross of Christ on it, and a stream of blood flowing from the summit of the mountain. I can look no longer. It is unbearable. I see the cross and Christ on it as it, in his last hour and torment. At the foot of the cross, the black serpent coils itself. It has wound itself around my feet. I am held fast, and I spread my arms wide. Salome draws near. The serpent has wound itself around my whole body, and my countenance is that of a lion. Salome says, Mary was the mother of Christ. Do you understand? I see that a terrible and incomprehensible power forces me to imitate the Lord in his final torment. But how can I presume to call Mary my mother? Salome, you are Christ. And that's Jung, a reader's edition, page 196 to 7.
Okay. You are Christ. As we read in their first encounter, Salome declares her love for Jung and explains that she is his sister. Their mother is Mary. It seemed to Jung that she assumed that he could cure her blindness. As he said, she began to worship him. When he asked her why, she replied, because he is Christ. He felt that this was madness and became filled with skeptical resistance. As he struggled to make sense of this interaction, he saw her as a manifestation of his feeling function, which he had repressed for decades. Okay, Linda, this is number 14. I'm going to have you do 15 as well in a minute.
Salome's approach and her worshipping of me is obviously that side of the inferior function, which is surrounded by an aura of evil. I felt her insinuations as a most evil spell. One is assailed by the fear that perhaps this is madness. This is how madness begins. This is madness.
Okay, thank you. So let's return to Jung on Golgotha. Okay, so that's 15.
I stand with outstretched arms like someone crucified, my body taut and horribly entwined by the serpent. You, Salome, say that I am Christ? It is as if I stood alone on a high mountain with stiff outstretched arms. The serpent squeezes my body in its terrible coils, and the blood streams from my body, spilling down the mountainside. Salome bends down to my feet and wraps her black hair round them. She lies thus for a long time. Then she cries, I see light. Truly, she sees, her eyes are open. The serpent falls from my body and lies languidly on the ground. I stride over it and kneel at the feet of the prophet Elijah, whose form shines like a flame. Elijah, your work is fulfilled here. Other things will come. Seek untiringly, and above all, write exactly what you see. Salome looks in rapture at the light that streams from the prophet. Elijah transforms into a huge flame of white light. The serpent wraps itself round her foot as if paralyzed. Salome kneels before the light in wonder-struck devotion. Tears fall from my eyes, and I hurry out into the night. like one who has no part in the glory of the mystery. My feet do not touch the ground of this earth, and it is as if I were melting into air.
Wow. Thank you. Oh, that's one of the major pinnacles of the Red Book, this particular event. In the scrutinies section of the Red Book, which is the third part, Jung maintained that no other event in Liber Novus shared the same quality as these visions. This experience marked a doorway of mystery, one which Jung was somehow able to pass through. At the end of the Mysterium, Elijah gives him an explicit mandate. Other things will come. Seek untiringly, and above all, write exactly what you see. Jung felt he had no choice but to comply with the prophet's command. So now let's consider beyond the Mysterium. His journey had commenced 45 days earlier. Now that the imaginal realm lay open before him, Jung engaged it untiringly, almost nightly, throughout the winter and early spring months of 1914. As I will attempt to show next time, the kaleidoscopic series of adventures, the imaginative figures, and the dialogues that ensued cannot be briefly summarized with justice. Jung's subsequent experiences varied in intensity and mode of expression. Many of the experiences he recorded are highly visual. Others are more auditory and conversational. Jung's concept of the active imagination involved all the aspects of the human being. This means that whatever sensory metaphor one uses to describe the experience of the imaginal must fail to the degree that it remains single-featured. It is thus bound by the exterior light of day. On their own, none of them is capable of fully capturing these elusive interior nocturnal visions. In the second chapter of the second book, Liber Secundus, called The Castle in the Forest, which was written about a year after his initial experiences in Book 1, Jung begins to reflect on them in an attempt to offer himself some sort of an explanation. Okay, Christina, let's take a look at his musing, number 16.
Reading 16. If you remain within arbitrary and artificially created boundaries, you will walk as between two high walls. You do not see the immensity of the world. But if you break down the walls that confine your view, then the ancient sleeper awakens in you. There in the wheel of chaos dwells eternal wonder. Your world begins to become wonderful. Man belongs not only to an ordered world, he also belongs in the wonder world of his soul. If you look outside yourselves, you see the far-off forests and mountains, and above them, your vision climbs to the realms of the stars. And if you look into yourselves, you will see, on the other hand, the nearby as far off and infinite. Since the word of the inner is as infinite as the word of the outer, just as you become a part of the manifold essence of the word through your bodies, so you become a part of the manifold essence of the inner word through your soul. This inner word is truly infinite, in no way poorer than the outer one. Man lives in two words.
Wow, that's a major thought. Thank you. We have two worlds that we live in. Now, for us at the moment, probably most of us are only visiting the imaginal realm in our dreams. And a lot of the time, they're just chaotic dreams. Occasionally, you'll have a vivid one or something that is trying to teach you something. But what he is suggesting is that if you engage active imagination, it's possible for you to interact with the imaginal realm with a level of consciousness that allows you to interrogate the features that you meet. This is as clear a description of the imaginal world as we have seen. Okay, and now is it Sherry that's reading 17?
It is.
Excellent.
The key is immersion and involvement in the mythopoetic imagination, grasping the independent reality of imaginal voice and vision and participating with it. I do not say granting reality to the experience. That would imply the sovereignty of the granting observer. The shattering fact that Jung knew is that the ego sacrificed all sovereignty in the experience. The Demiurge was deposed. Daylight consciousness was not the sole creator of the real.
Okay, so the Demiurge is a very important concept here. Drob is mentioning Jung's psychological interpretation of the Gnostic idea of the Demiurge. This Demiurge is a mythical figure embodying ignorance and materiality, standing between humanity and divine transcendence. A concept that sets Gnosticism apart from mainstream Christianity and Platonic theological thought. In Gnosticism, the Demiurge is considered a subordinate, craftsman-like God who creates and governs the material world. But he is seen as ignorant, flawed, and often antagonistic to the supreme true God valued by Gnostic thought. In most Gnostic systems, the Demiurge isn't the source of ultimate divinity, but is rather a lower entity that shapes matter and introduces suffering, imperfection, or outright evil into the cosmos. And so I did send this document to you as well, listing some of the main characteristics of this Demiurge. So just before we go on, in that passage that Drob just provided us here, this statement here, that daylight consciousness was not the sole creator of the real. What is happening here is Jung is saying that until we become alive to the imaginal realm, daylight consciousness is king. But if you allow yourself to experience the imaginal realm, that kingship is in jeopardy. And he's referring to that daylight consciousness, the spirit of the times, as he put it at the very beginning of his red book, is the Demiurge. Okay, so, but he's hearkening back to the Gnostic view. They frequently identify the Demiurge with the God of the Old Testament, describing him as arrogant, blind, and even malicious, keeping human souls trapped in a corrupt material realm. He's called by several names. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that one. The child of chaos, the blind god, and the fool. In mythic accounts, the Demiurge is a being born of Sophia, wisdom, who attempts creation on her own, resulting in an offspring described with disturbing imagery. Androgynous, beast-like, and an arrogant ruler who believes himself to be the only god. The Demiurge creates archons, rulers, to assist in administering the world, then traps divine sparks within humans, causing spiritual ignorance and suffering. So that's a little snapshot of what the Gnostics thought about it. But Jung, through his many, many years of studying their thought, puts a psychological spin on it, which we don't have time to go into in any real way. But I just wanted you to know that this is under the surface of his later thought. In Platonic and later philosophical traditions, the Demiurge arranges chaos into order by modeling the material cosmos on eternal ideas. Uh-oh. No, that was the last one. Okay, sorry. In Gnostic systems, this act of creation is regarded with suspicion. While some Gnostic schools portray the Demiurge as wholly malicious and an enemy of spiritual enlightenment, others, such as the Valentinians, depict him as ignorant but not evil. To them, he is a judge and lawgiver who knows neither his own origin nor the true God. The Demiurge is generally seen as the cause of suffering, material law, and limitations. Christ's mission in Gnostic narratives is to liberate souls from the Demiurge's rule and restore them to the divine fullness. So let's talk about Jung's interpretation to finish off here. Carl Jung interpreted the Gnostic Demiurge primarily as a psychological symbol for unconscious authoritarian forces, whether within the psyche or as manifest in external society. In both cases, these forces control individuals and restrict their development towards wholeness. The Demiurge, in Jung's view, represents the kind of ego inflation that mistakenly believes itself to be supreme, ignoring the deeper, wiser dimensions of the psyche. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of it. I think I've hired everybody out. So, just over here. There. Stop screen sharing. Okay. So I ran a little over time tonight, unfortunately, but I think you'll agree it was fairly powerful imagery that we saw there tonight. Putting himself in Christ's own position. Now you have to remember that the imaginal realm is where you dream. And so you know from your own experiences how fluid dream life is and how skilled it is at putting issues that you have into sort of a physical reality, a quasi-physical kind of reality. So that's how I want you to think of this. Jung is not Christ, but there are parts of him, his deep self, that are Christ-like, if you like. But I won't know until I hear from you how difficult a concept you're finding this. Or maybe it's not a difficulty at all.
Mark, could you just close this slide that's still showing? It's just a blank. Your
Okay.
screen sharing
I beg your pardon.
desktop or whatever. Yeah, thanks.
It's gone
Yeah.
now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sherry and Bill, what's up there?
So this, I was just wondering, is this sense of being Christ-like or having elements of Christ in one's being, is that something that Jung saw as maybe being applicable to everyone, or something unique to himself? Where do you see as being his perspective on that?
It's very clear he sees it as in everyone, but he's describing his own personal experience, that's all. But, and this is, for me, directly ties back to the divine trust that each of us carries, that most of us don't have much experience with. But Baha'u'llah suggests that it's there for us to get in touch with. That's the God within each of us. So whether you call it Christ or God or the divine spark or whatever, it's that same guide, I guess you'd have to say, more than anything else.
So then when you get to the externalism versus the internalism, everything is really in the same place in terms of what's being expressed in this dialogue between Elijah and Jung.
I'm not quite sure what it is you're saying.
It just seems to me that they're really talking about both the internal and the external as being the same.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd agree with that. Does that bother you, or?
No, I think it's great.
Okay.
I think it's good that there's a realization of that. I think that solidifies the intellectual ability to support the Baha'i faith in terms of what we believe as Baha'is and what our identity is as Baha'is in participating in humanity.
Okay, I'm not entirely following you. Maybe it's because I still have got a little bit of a concussion or something, but
maybe it's me that has the concussion.
No. I think it's an important point you're making. I'm not quite sure I'm seeing it clearly. That's all.
Well, I think when you look at the constraints of the various faiths, there's an internal external. I don't want to call it a false dichotomy, but a dichotomy that in the Baha'i faith, and I'm not saying not other faiths aren't like that, but definitely I think in the Baha'i faith we as we begin to learn about the faith and become more aware of the message of Baha'u'llah, we also lose that or diminish or weaken the strength, the wall between the self that is internal and the reality that is external.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My head hurts. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just
I know. Thought. Yeah. Okay. Maybe Jack has something that can help us here.
No, too deep for me, but the inner is outer and the outer is inner. I'm all for that. I just wanted to say, yeah, I didn't follow Bill's thinking there either entirely myself, but that's probably my fault. I just wanted to say we shouldn't get too upset or carried away by this Christ-like role of Jung, because remember it was Salome and Elijah who compared him to Christ, so that he had to die to himself. He had to experience a crucifixion of the self and be reborn.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but he also said, if I'm not mistaken, Jung that is, we all had to become Christ-like in that respect.
Yes.
And it's interesting that this comes up because at our potluck here at the co-op the other night, we have a very nice Christian lady on the social committee, Louise Madere, who's a Christian, and she sang to us this little hymn, which I had never heard before. let me be your Christ. Let me be Christ to you. Maybe some of you know that particular hymn. I had never heard it before, but so I don't think we should get too carried away about this idea as being blasphemous or something like that. Jung had a, in quotation marks, a kind of a prophetic role in that he was, if you like, reinterpreting Christianity in a different way, in a psychological way,
Yeah.
which involved the imaginal realm. So I don't think we should get too concerned about this. He of course, never laid any claim to being a prophet of any kind. And in fact, I quoted him before in another class as saying, I know that I'm not a prophet, so he wasn't filled with delusions of grandeur or anything of that nature.
In fact, he's warning against them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good points. Well, Lori, what's happening?
Hello,
The
hello.
news.
Happy Anima.
Yeah, happy Anima. Okay.
I had a couple of thoughts that I think it connects to what everyone's been saying. Um, this idea about being Christ-like, and I think what's interesting is like that quote about noble have I created thee from behind,
Mhm.
which is maybe a contrast to this, like the Gnostics and what the others were saying about sort of it has more of a negative connotation. But here there's this there's a recognition maybe of this nobility that it's within us. And I think there's that nobility, like the latent capacities, like virtues and things that we all have within us, which are like the reflections of the names of God. And I think that perhaps there could be a connection with that. Um, and I think it's really interesting that he's having these delusions of grandeur, and then he cautions himself, or he realizes, like, I mean, you can stand on the like ego is such a dangerous thing, and how it can kind of turn on you if you're not careful, right? Like especially when you're exploring these realms, and it's confusing. But I think that he is able to um, navigate that and find the light and the clarity, or the have the penny drop, so that he's able to get to have yeah, the clarity of what actually is, and being he's able to interpret what the dreams are actually trying to say without, and then in the process questioning his own sanity, so that he's able to temper these dreams that are, I mean, you can interpret them in different ways, but it seems that he finds what the essence is of these dreams.
Yeah.
And the
And
only yeah, oh, sorry.
you go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And then the other thing I just thought was so great is he's really talking about this inner and outer world, and working in counseling and expressive arts therapy. I work with clients, adults in particular, where they come in confused about who they are and what they are and what they think and how they're moving through the world. And maybe they have personality disorders, and they're just, but it's really beautiful when we through meditation and through art start to cultivate an inner landscape, or an inner uh, uh yeah, an inner landscape. Maybe there's a castle inside there, maybe they're standing on the edge of a desert, or all of this like sort of Salvador Dali kind of imagery comes into play, and then eventually every time it starts to cross over into their real life in a way that now their inner world and their outer world is connecting. I had a client talking, created a castle within her, and this whole landscape of a castle and all of these characters that were personality traits. And then they went off to win a contest where they ended up getting crowned in real life. And so now they are. So it was just, it was beautiful to see what transpired and what was created here first and in here, and then was able to be a tool for them to feel more aligned, like having yeah, just aligned with who they really were. So I find what Jung is sharing is to be relatable, as esoteric or maybe as it is, but there's like what an interesting journey, and what a pioneer. So we're, yeah, what a pioneer. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was excellent. I enjoyed that. Okay, David and Belinda, what are you wanting to say?
Yeah. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Well, I agree. With what is being said here, but I just want to say that in relation to what Bill has been trying to express, if you go back to reading 16
Mhm.
and you read that quotation, if you look outside yourselves, you see the far off forests and mountains and so on. And then if you look into yourselves, and then it goes on from there. You know, this is what I think um, Bill was trying to express in an interpretation. In this sense, the internal or the outer and the external or the inner are the same thing. And there was a lot in Revelation and in the images that we don't understand and can't understand. So uh, you know, Baha'u'llah said that we are the greater world, not the lesser. And I think that's very, very important. Um, um, in terms of what we understand about ourselves in relation uh, to the outer world or the universe. Okay.
Mm.
And also too, he says, God is within all of us. Bahal himself says, that there is something in us that we cannot understand and will never understand. That's what we can't understand it. He said the philosophers, the science, this, that, and the other thing. There's no way that we can understand the deepest part of ourselves. But then it ends that passage with the importance of limitation. That it is the fullness of the height of our maturity in ourselves and as humankind when we understand and put into action, understand our limitations. It's very, very important about limitation. And it has to do, he says, with what we will attain in the future.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the more your understanding develops, the more you're interfacing with what you don't know. So you gradually become more and more aware of the fact that you know very little.
I hear that every day.
Well, there's an indigenous little story here. You're this person was talking to a non-indigenous person. They were in a car, and there was a fog, and I don't know where I am here.
I remember this.
There was a fog, and
they were driving at night.
They're driving at night. The headlights are on, and he says, "Look, we can only see so far ahead of us. We can't see what's beyond it. Then you go a little farther, you see a little more, but then it's beyond that, and so on and so forth. It keeps on going on."
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. And even in the sciences, as you know, the more we discover,
the less we know
and understand. Once again, there's so much more that we don't, as Belinda said, that we don't understand, that we don't know.
Well, I'm hoping that that's one of the messages that's coming through by this course, that there's lots that we don't really know.
What questions to ask?
Yeah.
So
Okay, Milton, we're running out of time here. So, Milton, what do you think?
I often think of the hidden word where Baha'u'llah says, O Son of Man, deny not my servant should he ask anything from thee, for his face is my face. Be then abashed before me. And this is, so often when people, this doesn't set anybody individual up as, a stand-in for Baha'u'llah. It's to me anyway, it's a way that we should view others. And when Jung had this vision, I think he was kind of seeing this apart from himself. He was just kind of standing on the outside almost. It seems to me anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are created in the image of God. So it's not really blasphemous, as has been mentioned several times. I'll leave it.
Well, and it's interesting that many critics of Jung fasten on this idea that he was, a prophet of some kind and trying to start a religion, blah, 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 none of which is true. But they come at it without that distinction that we made tonight between comments about the metaphysical God, the one out there, and the one inside, the image inside. They don't get that. So they think everything he's saying about God relates to the ultimate essence of God, which is the farthest thing from the truth that there could be. Anyway, so, okay, Janet and Lynette, somebody there wants to talk. But you need to mute or unmute yourself.
Hi.
Oh,
I just
hi.
want to say, as a reflection on the comments, divinities within us and we're created in the image of God. What was coming up, I just kept thinking, is that this thing I've heard many times is that we're made of the same thing as stardust.
Mm.
That's just what I have to say.
Yeah, I think
Same matter.
that's relevant, to say the least. Yeah. Okay, Alan, you got the last word.
I was thinking that if science has since maybe the 1750s become the new God, it's absolutely essential that we have a God that points us to the mystical realm. Otherwise, we sort of end up like my dog. I was looking at it the other night and watching it as it was responding to this noise and that noise and what it wanted in terms of the physical environment. And it struck me that this lovely little animal had no sense of the mystical at all. And I thought then, there's an awful lot of human beings I know whose lack of awareness of the spiritual, mystical, the reality that exists leaves them behaving like dogs in this world, if I can be so cruel. The acquisition of spiritual qualities and attributes is not important to far too many of my friends. Yes, they're kind. Yes, they're generous, and they will help others easily. But there isn't the search for the divine.
How do we promote that? How do we encourage it?
Well, I think that this is why Jung is so important, because what he's saying is, P.S., there is another realm, and you can experience it. And that may be the wonder of his message, is that science is saying there is something else out there.
And he's making the point over and over again, and we'll see it in the future, about how real these figures are. right? That he's actually seeing an independent realm that's different from this one. It's related, but it's different. And in fact, in the Islamic tradition, as we saw in part 1 of this course, it's the intermediate realm between the next world, if you like, and this world, between the intelligible world and the material world, where those two come together and morph into all kinds of weird shapes. Okay, I see that Rob and Roxanne are ready to talk, even though it's past 9 o'clock. We're going to allow it.
Thank you. I just don't I don't see the separation. So I'm not really conversant with a lot of these psychological images, and the dreaming is it's the symbols are confusing to me. But I don't see the separation of these different realms. I think of the soul is endowed with a sign of God, and that opens a cosmos inside each one of us. And I think that for me, the sadness is that we long to connect with others in that spiritual depth and that innate love that manifests itself in our lives. We wander in the world of humans, longing to connect with them and knowing this great knowledge that Baha'u'llah has brought, which they want. And so all these different realms and symbols, for me, I see that they're all connected. They're not separated. And we're not separated from people. We're connected, but we're trying to make the deeper connections and find those connections inside ourselves and manifest them around us.
Well, I can't argue with anything you just said. So,
sounds good to me.
Yeah. Well done. Okay, folks, it's after 9 o'clock, so I guess we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for sharing the evening with us.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
So I will send the new schedule tomorrow so you can see that we're just going to have 6 classes in a row here right away. So it'll keep you going through the fast.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
Mike. Yes,
Take care of yourselves.
It's
Don't fall.
Oh, yeah, you too.
out there that we can talk with.
Yeah.
Some of them are very far away. And I'm so grateful that we get to meet these people who are very far away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks to the wonders of technology.
Isn't it great? It really is spectacular.
Get in.
Okay.
Okay.